Hello BookTube, welcome back to AusLit 101 and we're moving on from young adults because today I'm going to be talking about classic Australian novels. We're going to stick to fiction and so there's a lot to say in this video. I have a good chunk of books here and this is going to be a bit longer than the last ones we've done because I don't really have much to say about children's books or middle grade or YA. I'm not the best person to talk about that, but if I'm great at classic novels because that's my cup of tea. And so, when it comes to the time periods of classic novels and how I'm gonna split this up, because the next video will be contemporary novels. Pretty much the oldest book I have on this list is from the 1870s, and then this list is going to end at the 1977. That's in terms of classic. And then the 80s onwards, I'm just going to say is contemporary, even though it kind of not is, but that's just the way it's going to be planned out, and it's just easier for me. And so let's start. So you want to read classic Australian fiction? Where do you start? Well, I would recommend starting with For the Term of His Natural Life by Marcus Clarke. This was published in 1874, so it's a bit old, and this is about the imprisonment of Rufus Dawes. He's pretty much an innocent young man who was wrongfully convicted of murder, and he was sent to Van Diemen's Land, which is Tasmania now. And it's one of the most brutalist books I've ever read. As we follow Rufus throughout the decades, as he's exposed to like the harshness and corruption of early colonial Australia in a way that Patrick White could never write something so like bleak, or even, oh my, I hate to say this, but even when Cormac McCarthy in Blood Meridian tries to be, all, bleak and brutal and all that stuff, those have got absolutely nothing on For the Term of His Natural Life. It can be a really tough read at times. We follow Rufus again throughout the decades. He tries to escape, but he doesn't. He gets a lot of brutal bashings by the police at the time. They're not called the police at the time. I can't remember what they were originally called. But throughout the novel, he does have a little bit of hope because he has a little bit of a love interest in a girl named Sylvia, but she has amnesia, so she remembers who he is, but she can't remember all the nice things that Rufus has done to her, and so he's kind of in this awful cycle, and the novel just makes you sit with that. It's a lot, but it is probably the first great Australian novel, to be honest. And so yeah, if you want to do like one of the big three, I would say pick up For the Term Is Natural Life. So that's the oldest one on my list. Then we're moving to 1888, where I'm going to be talking about a little book called Robbery Under Arms. This was by Rolf Bolderood. That's not his real pen. That's just a pen name. But this is the story of Dick Martin, and he narrates his life as a bushranger. His brother Jim, and his friend and obviously mentor, the scene stealing Captain Starlight, and they travel throughout the gold rush in the 1850s, stealing, robbing, and hiding from police in the bush. They even steal 1,000 cattle at one point, which apparently did happen, and we see them do all this criminal stuff. But towards the end of the book, we also get their downfall, and also all of them get the consequences of their actions. And it's a really fun book. I don't have a copy of it because I lent it to someone and I haven't seen it in God knows how long, but I did hold it on my channel once. And yeah, that's pretty much the book. Really, it's fun. It's very much an adventure novel. It's interesting to see how Robbery Under Arms, in my head, really inspired a lot of the American Western books that you would see in the 20th century. Owen Wester, who wrote The Virginian, said that this book was the inspiration for The Virginian, which I thought was really cool, and I would honestly take Robbery Under Arms a bit. But it's interesting to see. And this book was very different to a lot of the other fiction that was coming out in Australia, because Australia has always been true crime and just crime fiction. That's like our bread and butter in this country. It always has been. Our first big sellers were crime fiction. It's insane how much people love crime fiction here, and I am one of those people too, if I don't read it all the time. But it's interesting to see how this and like For the Term of His Natural Life still aren't technically crime novels, but they still have those elements of crime. And again, I'm leaving some big novels off this list too, especially like again the crime ones. But I thought pick up Robbery on the Rams too, and because it has um, reaching influences outside of Australia, it's one of those rare books that broke through and would inspire a lot of other writers. So you'll see that anywhere. Literally, it's public domain at this point. Um, then we're moving on to something different. We're going to 1901 to talk about My Brilliant Career by Miles Franklin. Now, Miles Franklin wrote this as a teen. She was literally 16 when she wrote this, but it was published a couple of years later, I believe. And this, we follow Sylvia Melvin. She's a bold, headstrong teenager seeking independence and a more fulfilling life for herself. She even turns down a marriage proposal from a wealthier man. And this is interesting because her family at the time is absolutely poor. They were once rich, but due to her father's alcoholism and poor financial decisions, it's just completely buried the family. And while that's going on, what's her name? The main girlie, Sylvia. Sylvia. She travels to. She goes to live with her grandma and grandmother, sorry, and she thrives over there in like the rich, more richer place where she goes, and she thrives and she makes a new life for herself, and she gets this glimpse of the life that she could have had, except she's forced to return back to the bush with her poor family. And the novel ends, I think, beautifully and really interestingly with Sylvia accepting her fate as just this is her going to be her life now, but also she still has that tiny spark of independence inside her, and it gives you that hope that she's going to figure out a way where she can still be herself, but also just survive, really. It's a really interesting way to end this novel. And it's a classic. What do you want me to say? I know there is a sequel to it that was written at some point. I haven't gone to that. I haven't read anything else by Miles Franklin. I do have a biography of her, but that's literally, I've only read My Brilliant Career, but this is, this book. Then we're moving on to Such is Life by Tom Collins, by The Diary of Tom Collins by Joseph Furphy. This was published in 1903. And we follow this fictional character named Tom Jones, and just his travels throughout the bush. This is very much told through like stories, like not short stories, but like diary stories, pretty much. As he travels across New South Wales and Victoria in the 1880s, and he meets different people such as like swagmen, boundary riders, bullock drivers, like everyone. And it's just writing down the stories that they have around like a campfire and stuff like that. It's very slice of life in like everyday Australia, which I found really interesting. And it's just nice to hear stories from that time period. It kind of does remind me of a Henry Lawson in terms of just really exploring like that again, that slice of life of outback Australia. I actually really do love. And that's pretty much the entire book. It's just short, like vignettes nearly, of just working day people's lives. And so that's another great recommendation. You'll see that everywhere. And then we're moving on to The Fortunes of Richard Mahony. This was published in between 1917 and 1929, right? Now, this was published by Henry Handel Richardson, except it was a woman who wrote this, and her real name was Ethel. And this is pretty much a 3-volume trilogy about his man's rise and fall, Richard Mahony, who's an Irish immigrant to Australia in the 1800s. He comes here and works as a medical practitioner, but decides to give it up and go look for gold in Ballarat. He meets a girl named Mary who encourages him to go back to his medical field job career because of his lack of success finding gold. And that's pretty much how the first book in the trilogy starts and ends. Then in the second book, the family now, because they're a family, they travel to England, and Richard starts to become a bit more isolated from everyone around him. And then all of like something bad happens because Richard's trusted financial agent steals his fortune, and Richard is absolutely sent into poverty. And the third book is just a mental breakdown of grand proportions. We see Richard attempt suicide, and before and after that, he's admitted to a mental asylum where the book ends. Very bleak ending, but it was a big, massive bestseller at the time. I know Penguin still print this, so that shows you how big it is. Again, it crossed over outside of here. And pick it up if you haven't. It is a bit longer than some of the other books I'm going to be talking about, but Fortune to Richard Mahony. It's not talked about as much anymore, but it is an Australian classic in my mind. And then now we're moving on to an author that I don't like at all, really. I realized I had to put a Patrick White novel here because he's Patrick White. I just whacked in Voss. I'll talk about it later. So Voss, if you don't know, set in the 1840s, and we follow a German explorer, Jonathan Ulrich Voss, and he attempts to travel from Sydney all the way into the heartland of Australia, kind of like a Burks and Wills exploration, kind of. Except again, like Burks and Wills, it goes awful. A majority of the party dies along the way, and which is one half of the novel. Then the other half is before Jonathan left for his big doomed journey, he meets a girl named Laura, and they have like this weird psychic bond that doesn't work at all for me. And before the expedition begins, they meet and do psychic stuff together. Pretty much, I don't know. And then as Jonathan struggles and with his journey, Laura's like, I'm gonna adopt an orphan child, and so he can be like a surrogate, so he can keep our human telekinesis connection together. It doesn't make sense. Again, I only put Patrick White here because like he is one of the biggest authors we've ever had, even though he's nowhere near talked about as much anymore. When Patrick White died, his novels died with him for a reason. He's like, I don't want to hate on Patrick White too much because this video isn't about him, but poor man C.H. Lawrence, and I don't even like C.H. Lawrence. If you're gonna do Patrick White, do his biography by David Marr. It's big. Patrick had a very interesting life, but it doesn't reflect in his writing at all. Even his letters are boring. And so again, I had to chuck Patrick White on here. Just do Voss, and maybe move on or keep reading him if you like that. We're moving on to another author now. The Long Prospect by Elizabeth I can't say her name, Harrower. This is published in 1958, and we follow a young girl named Emily. She's soon to be 12, and she lives with her nan in a small industrial town in Australia in like the 1950s. Her parents are separated and working in different areas, remote areas. Her nan is like in her 40s, like twice divorced, and is very neglectful in a really just unkind way, and just no, honestly, just really cruel. It's hard to read at times. Emily has a real fascination. She wants to learn, but she's denied education, and so because her nan's like, I didn't learn, so you don't have to, and so that happens, Emily starts to really grow hatred towards men because of her influence of her nan, and because she's so highly manipulated. And even as she grows up with her friends, the cruelties, and Emily just turns into a really nasty person throughout her gossips. She just turns really narrow-minded because of the people around her. And it's really sad to see. She's lonely, but she's a reader. But then her eyes suddenly be focused on a lovely man that comes into her life. His name's Max, and pretty much he's an adult, which what makes this really weird. And she starts to I can't even describe it, like blackmail him and like just absolutely try to get with him, and it's really weird, but it's chaotic, it's messy, it's toxic, manipulative she is, and the novel ends with Max deciding what he's gonna do in terms of intervention. So before Emily makes a real move, and it's interesting. Again, I think this is becoming a classic. It's been reprinted a lot. This is Elizabeth's second novel. Her first book was The Watchtower, which I haven't read yet. But again, this is becoming bit of it's back in print, so give it a try if you haven't. I'm putting this on the list because it's nice to put some authors that you don't know about. But yeah, so pick out the Long Prospect if you haven't. Again, I probably didn't sell it that well. It is a weird book to talk about. It's pretty bleak and revenge based, and I did really like it, but it's a lot. Then we're moving on to probably the most classic book here, and probably my personal favorite. Outside of probably For the Thomas Natural Life, this is probably number 2. I actually don't know what number 3 would be. I'm sorry, but that is obviously Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. This was published in 1967. And this story, Picnic at Hanging Rock, takes place at this girls' private college in the year 1900. And this class goes on a picnic at Hanging Rock, which is like a mountain area near the school. And during the excursion, the 3 girls go off and explore themselves, and they disappear. And the book follows the absolutely desperate efforts that the community and the school takes to find these girls, and also the real rippling effects of these disappearances have on the school and the headmaster too. And it's just a brutal tragedy. And that's pretty much the novel. It's just more rippling effects because the event happens very early in the novel, and you're just seeing the complete fallout of the expedition, and not the expedition, but what happened to these 3 girls, because you don't know unless you read the bonus chapter, which was the original plan, where it turned out the young girls were abducted by aliens, but that didn't make it into the book. Thank you, editors. That's, again, you can tell it was the 60s. And so that's pretty much the novel. It's a classic. What do you want me to say? It's the closest book Australia, I think, has to like a genuine gothic novel. It's so sparse, it's brutal, it doesn't hold back at all, which I really love. Joan's writing is incredible, and every time I pick it up, I'm like, why haven't I read more from you? Because I don't know else what she writes, so I've got to check her out. And that's Picnic at Hanging Rock. Go pick that one out because it's a classic, and you know it. Like, let's be honest, everyone knows Picnic at Hanging Rock. And then the last book for today I'm going to be talking about is the biggest selling book by an Australian author ever. It's never been overtaken, and that is The Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough. This was published in 1977. I think this is the first edition. I could be wrong here, because I know this is the original cover and got the back. But it's a multi-generational love story. We follow 3 generations, first set in New Zealand, but then the family moves to Australia to have a sheep station in the outback, and it's pretty much an ill-fated romance between Maggie, Clary, and the handsome priest, Father Rolf. I can't say his last name, and pretty much the forced to choose between his new love interest or the church he's sworn to, and he stays with the church, and it's just the outcome of that as they have kids. And there's a tragic death in here. Again, more slice of life. It is, again, a longer book because it's 3 generations talking about this family. It spans over 55 years, and it's just really interesting, and I love it so much. I don't want to spoil much of it, but check out The Thornbirds if you haven't. There's a movie of it. It's been around. It's lovely. But yeah, I haven't read anything else by Colleen. I know she does historical, like ancient fiction. I think she has that big Roman Empire series. I could be wrong. But yeah, this is the only thing I've ever read from her. And I don't know if I like anything else. I need to suss her out a bit more before I commit to the next book. But yeah, so check out The Thornbirds as well. And that is just a beginning place where if you want to get into like classic Australian novels. And I did leave out a lot, but I thought this was just like a lovely place to start. You know, if any of these seem interesting, just pick it up and give it a try. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you would add to this list, and watch out for the next couple days for the contemporary novels by Australians you must read. But yeah, thank you so much for watching BookTube, and I will see you next time.